Alright, hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast, Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Thursday Night Football, Week 7 of the 2022 NFL season. So after a couple of duds the past couple of weeks, we get an NFL game that not only had touchdowns, but it had points. And a lot of points at that too. I think the Cardinals put up like 42 total points or something like that. It was 40 something points. Ultimately with some help from their defense, they were able to run away with the game, and the Saints never really came close to catching them. It was close. It was competitive at first, but like I said, Arizona's defense came through in a big way with turnovers. And with that, we're going to get right into the action. Starting with the Saints. Andy Dalton completed 30 of 47 passes for 361 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So 2 of Dalton's interceptions were pick sixes on back-to-back second quarter drives. The miscues were basically ball game and forced Dalton and the Saints to play an entire half of comeback trail mode. All 3 of Dalton's picks came in one 15-minute span, and other than that, Dalton did well to post the numbers he did with an extra supporting cast. But is there such a thing as other than that when you throw 2 pick sixes? Probably not. Dalton's advantage in his battle with Jameis Winston over his starting job is that he throws fewer picks, yet Winston remains the better bet to generate instant offense. Dalton might start Week 8 against Las Vegas, but don't consider it a sure thing after the 3-pick performance in this game. Granted, the one that bounced off his receiver's hand wasn't his fault, but the other 2 were kind of on him. Those were just bad decisions on his part. And biggest takeaway for the Saints after this game, Jameis Winston is getting his job back. Probably. Andy Dalton took over for an injured Watson and performed relatively well throughout his 3 starts, keeping the turnovers and sacks down to a minimum. He started out hot in this game, but he blew a nearly 9-minute drive of a bad red zone pick and followed that up with back-to-back pick sixes. So Dalton had himself a bad performance, and the Saints lost this game as a result. And not only that, but the Saints should go back to learning if Winston has a future as their franchise quarterback. And time is running out with this team now at 2-5. Assuming he's healthy, which he probably is. I mean, he was active in this game. The Saints should go back to him, as Dalton was never the planned starter. And for the Saints in the turnover department on offense and defense, it kind of hit rock bottom. Offense turned the ball over in this game with the interceptions. In defense, well, they weren't creating any turnovers. As for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray completed 20 of 29 passes for 204 yards and a touchdown, adding 7 carries for 30 yards. And it would have been nice to see Murray produce more than a touchdown in what ended up as the highest scoring game in the Cliff Kingsbury over in Arizona, but this was so far his steadiest overall outing of the season. That is despite the usual bad sacks, clock management issues, and also spats with Kingsbury, one of which was very visible on the TV, or very visible for everybody too who was watching the game on Prime to see. Murray seemed centered by the return of DeAndre Hopkins, even though it coincided with the loss of Marquise Brown. It would have been nice to see what those 2 together could do, but Mark Brown is expected back later in the season, so hopefully we'll get to see that later in the season. Of concern was a second-half visit to the Blue Medical Tent, but Murray was never announced of an injury. Running effectively so far this season, Murray's rushing efficiency tends to crater when he plays hurt, so hopefully he's not seriously injured. Doesn't seem like he is. And if there is something that was ailing him tonight, other than soreness, he has 10 days to rest up before a Week 8 with the Vikings. So some overall takeaways for the Cardinals in this game. Slow starts were not an issue for the Cardinals in this game, as they solved their second quarter issues for one night anyway. DeAndre Hopkins made his return coming off a suspension, and there was no easing him in. His final stat line reads as follows: 10 of 14 targets for 103 yards, no touchdowns. A little bit disappointing, but it's good to know that he is back, and Murray's kind of just throwing the ball his way. I mean, really no other receiver had more than 5, I think. So yeah, he's clearly back, and he's the number 1 guy in his offense. Robbie Anderson, I think, had like 1 target. Didn't really play all that much too, so I'm interested to see how how much volume goes his way if Hopkins sustains this kind of volume going forward. E.O. Benjamin has earned more playing time, and his tackle break and run style was on full display en route to a 12-carry, 92-yard, 1-touchdown rushing performance. He runs hard and with purpose, and has been an asset for the Cardinals offense the past couple of weeks with James Conner sidelined. So even with Conner expected back next week, I think ultimately E.O. Benjamin is something the Cardinals should try to get the ball a little bit more often, because he's proven himself to be quite the playmaker. And normally, yeah, so with that, we'll wrap up this episode, or this discussion on the game. And normally I don't talk about news during the week, mostly because I kind of forget about the news during the week, and also most of it is kind of not so major. There's some couple of things that happened during the NFL season have certainly been newsworthy, like the Panthers firing their head coach, and then trading Robbie Anderson. And speaking of the Panthers too, they made another trade, that one being Christian McCaffery to the 49ers, and I will say 49ers gave up quite a few picks for Christian McCaffery. It'd be interesting to see how well that plays out for him. They weren't any first round picks, so I guess there's that. Then again, I don't think the 49ers had a first round pick in the next draft anyway, but nonetheless, though, this is a great get for the 49ers here, adding somebody like McCaffrey to that offense with the playmakers they already have. It should certainly lead to an uptick in production for McCaffrey, and certainly make that 49ers offense that much more dangerous and that much more productive. So great, like I said, great game for the 49ers, and for the Panthers. Well, I guess it's good you got something out of the guy, but it is it is kind of sad to see a team kind of just like trade away players of value like McCaffrey, even though yes, you fired your head coach, you're going through a transitional period, you're just trying to get through the rest of the season. But I guess, yeah, if you can get something for the guy, might as well. You're moving on to the future, and that starts with, making some moves in the present to set yourself up better for that future, and trading a guy like McCaffrey does just that. And ultimately, Panthers offense wasn't really that productive anyway. Doesn't sound like they're going to trade DJ Moore. They're considering him a foundational piece, and ultimately, you got to hang on to somebody. So, hanging on to a guy like DJ Moore, probably a good idea. And you might also want to look at your defense and decide who your foundational guys are right there too. Is Brian Burns a foundational guy? Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson. I could see Shaq Thompson moving. He's a veteran guy, solid linebacker. Perhaps he could be on the move. Looking at that secondary, Dante Jackson was somebody who re-signed in free agency, so I don't quite see him going anywhere. J.C. Horn, he might be a foundational piece in that secondary. But yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see if the Panthers do make any other moves. The trade deadline is November 1st, but hopefully they do kind of keep some good guys around, so their team can at least put some talented guys on the field and at least put something good on tape. Ultimately their offense is going to be hard to watch anyway with their current quarterback situation. And with that, we'll go ahead and quit rambling on, and we'll wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.